Good morning. I am so glad that you could join me this morning. We have such a great lesson that we are going to learn about today. But I wanted to start out and talk about our eyes. Did you know that your eyes are one of the most complex organisms in your body? That's right, your eyes. They have over 1 million different optic nerves in them, optic nerve cells. So they're just incredibly complex, and God's created your eyes to do so much. I also want to talk about some things that help us see better. So you might notice I have a couple things, like I have my sunglasses. These are great if you're outside. If you wear them inside, it just, you just look a little silly and you look like you're trying to be a movie star in incognito. But the thing that they do is they filter out the dangerous rays that could damage your eyes. So you've got sunglasses that help your eyes. I've recently started wearing these. These are helpful to me as I work at my computer. So what they do is they filter out the blue light. So as I'm staring at my computer screen for long lengths of time, my eyes aren't going to get tired and they're not going to begin to get strained. So just like if I was running a marathon, I'd want to wear good shoes and not a pair of flip-flops. The same things for these. These kind of help the muscles in my eyes not get as tired. But there's two other things that I have that some of you don't have that I wear that help my eyes. So one of them is currently in my eyes right now. And I know when I go to camp, a couple of y'all are always fascinated by these. You see, my vision's not that great. In fact, when I was probably Eli's age, and I got taken, well, first they sent a note home from school, and then I got taken to the optometrist, and he did all these tests, and when I walked out of the optometry office, it was a completely brand new world because I discovered that I hadn't been seeing things right because my vision isn't good. So I wear contacts. I don't know if you can see these. We're going to zoom in a little bit so you can. See these that's what I wear that helps me see. So like right now, I have my right one's out of my eye and the left one is, so it's really kind of confusing because everything on this side is really blurry and everything on my left side isn't. It's kind of a weird thing. So at night, I just kind of pop them in here and I squirt a little contact solution because you don't want them to get dried out because otherwise they hurt your eyes. And then once I pull them out, I can't see anything again. It's like I was back when I was in third grade, third grade. I can't see things. I can't see the bark on trees. I can't, anything small. So like my papers here to read, I can't see that. It's too blurry. Even Miss Sarah's face, who's filming me, I know she's there. I can see the colors. I have to get really close to something to be able to see it. But God's given us the ability to make things that help us see. So I can always put on my glasses or my contacts and I'm able to see. But there's people, like the man we're going to learn about today, that he couldn't see at all. He was blind. So that meant even if he put on glasses or contacts or something like that, even if he got really, really close to something, he couldn't see. We're going to learn about how God healed him through Jesus. All right, let's walk over to the timeline and see where we are in the Bible. All right, so we're here at our timeline. And as you know, we have these in almost all of our classrooms. Today, we're in the third grade class. And their timeline starts all the way over there in Genesis. That's where we started about 1.5 years ago. And we've gone from Genesis all the way through the Old Testament, all the way into the New Testament. Jesus has been born at this point, and we are going to find ourselves right here in John 9 with the story of how Jesus healed a man who was blind. And that's what we're going to be learning about today. How about we take a pause and we watch our Bible story video before we continue with our other activities.
Jesus was walking with his disciples when he saw a man who had been born blind. The disciples asked, "Teacher, why was this man born blind? Did this happen because of his sin or his parents' sin?" Jesus answered, "Neither his sin nor his parents' sin caused this. This man was born blind so that people could see God's power through him." Jesus would be on earth for a short time, so he healed people to show what God is like. Jesus said, "While I am in the world, I am the light of the world." Then Jesus spit on the ground and made mud. He put the mud on the eyes of the man who was blind. "Go and wash in the pool of Siloam," Jesus instructed. The man went and washed.
Wow.
When he came back, he could see. The man's neighbors were amazed. They took the man to the religious leaders and they asked him how he was healed. "A man put mud on my eyes. I washed and now I can see," he said. The religious leaders were upset because Jesus had healed on the Sabbath again. They did not want to believe that Jesus could give sight to people who were blind. Over and over again, the man who was healed told the religious leaders what happened. The man believed Jesus must have come from God. But the religious leaders threw the man out of the synagogue. Jesus came to the man again and asked, "Do you believe in the Son of Man?" The man answered, "Tell me who he is so I can believe in him." "You have already seen him," Jesus replied. "The Son of Man is talking to you now." The man said, "I believe, Lord," and he worshiped Jesus. Our sin makes us unable to see the truth about God. Jesus came as a light in a dark world. He came to give us sight, true understanding of God and his kingdom. Those who trust in Jesus see who he is and worship him.
One of our main characters in today's Bible story was a blind man. He couldn't see. So one of our activities today is going to be a fun one. You can do it by yourself, or even more fun would be to do it with your family. Recently, I played this game with Kagan when I went over and visited her. So you're going to need a blindfold. I'm just going to use my headband because it's available. I suppose you could close your eyes, but I know sometimes with siblings you think they might be cheating. Okay, so you're going to put on a blindfold where you can't see. I can't see. All right, and you are going to draw something. Like each person is going to get to choose what the blindfolded person has to draw. It's kind of like blindfolded Pictionary, okay? Well, I guess if it was like blindfolded Pictionary, they'd choose. Maybe we'll do it that way since it's just you and me. All right, hold on. Are you ready? I'm truly blind here. Let's see if you can guess what I'm drawing. What do you think it is? Well, it sort of looks like a butterfly. I probably could have done better if I'd been able to see, but that's how you're going to play this game. So get some pieces of paper and get your family and take turns drawing blindfolded and guessing what it is. Or you can switch it up and they can tell you what you have to draw. Like maybe they'd say, you have to be blindfolded and draw
A tree.
a tree. Oh, I don't know. Let's see. What color is this side?
Pink.
I think I'm going to use the pink side there. A tree, maybe.
It's pretty good.
Hey, I was glad you chose something easy. So You're going to take turns and draw blindfolded. If you want to, for extra fun, send me pictures of y'all doing this or a video because I miss getting to see some of the funny things that y'all do. Okay, so in today's story, you might have remembered from the Bible story video, but something really strange is going to happen. To me, this is one of the craziest stories in the Bible because in this story, well, I'm going to give you some spoilers. In this story, Jesus digs into the ground and he pulls up some mud and then he spits in it. I totally missed the mud just then, which I'm okay with. And he puts it on a person's eyes. Man, but did you know something about this person? That person was born blind. Now, in those days, a man that was born blind didn't have all the technology like we have. So he really would have had to just beg every day for help. He would have sat by the corner and begged, and then he would have had somebody lead him back to the house. In today's mission story, we're going to learn about Amy Carmichael. And she's one of my favorite missionaries to study about because she went to the outcast in India. And she made sure that people who didn't have anybody taking care of them and didn't have anyone offering them hope, she brought them not only hope in this physical world, but she brought them hope in the spiritual world because she told them about Jesus. So hang on. We're going to study about Amy Carmichael, and then I'm going to tell you the story, and we're going to figure out what mud and spit has to do with today's Bible story.
There was once a little girl with brown eyes. She desperately wanted blue eyes, so she prayed and prayed for God to turn her brown eyes blue. God did not turn her eyes blue. He had bigger plans for this little girl and her brown eyes. The little girl's name was Amy Beatrice Carmichael. She was born in Ireland in 1867. Amy's father died when she was just a teenager. When he died, the family business suffered as well. Even though Amy's family had very little, it didn't stop her from helping others. She delivered food and she shared the gospel with others in need. Amy often went to places like the slums in her city. These weren't very nice places to live. Even though there were bugs, rats, and sickness everywhere, Amy loved the people there and knew they needed to hear about Jesus. Eventually, Amy got really sick and had to live with family and friends. During this time, she heard a famous missionary speak about the need for people around the world to hear the gospel. Amy realized God was asking her to be a missionary. In 1884, Amy left for India. She worked hard to learn the language and the culture. To better fit in, she learned to eat and prepare Indian dishes, and she also wore traditional Indian clothes. Because Amy did not have blue eyes, her brown eyes also helped her to be accepted by those around her. Amy soon realized there were many young girls and women who needed help in India. They were living on the streets or in unclean places like the slums back in her hometown. Amy provided a safe place for hundreds of these girls and women. She cared and loved for them. Many learned about the love of God for the very first time. Amy Carmichael loved and served the people of India for 55 years. She became Amma, the Indian word for mother, to many people there, and many others chose to follow Jesus through her work and testimony.
Hey guys, welcome to one of my favorite reading spots at my house. I've got all my books near me, and I've got a nice little lamp, and this is my comfy chair from my nanny and pop. And so I just kick back here sometimes and I'll just read for hours. So I thought today I would read y'all the Bible story in my comfy reading chair. Isn't that fun? All right, so today's story, like we've discussed, is about Jesus healing the man who was blind. And we've talked about how that's from the book of John, chapter 9. So if you want to read more about this story and some more details, that's an excellent place to read because you're going to get all sorts of little details that I can't include today. So here's how it happened. Jesus was walking with his disciples when he saw a man who was born blind. The disciples asked, "Teacher, why was this man blind? Did it happen because of his sin or his parents' sin?" Jesus answered, "Neither his sin nor his parents' sin caused this. This man was born blind so that people could see God's power through him." Jesus would be on earth for a short time, so he healed people to show what God is like. Jesus said, "I am the light of the world." Then, this is a really crazy part, Jesus spit on the ground and made mud. Ugh, what do you think he's going to do with the mud? He put the mud on the eyes of the man who was blind. Just imagine that, like cool, squishy feeling on your eyes. Plus, there's this little part of me that's like, there's spit in that mud. But you know what? I feel like that Jesus' spit is okay. However, you don't need to be spitting and like getting it on anybody, okay? Just to clarify. You only get to spit if you're Jesus. But let's see what happened next. He put the mud on the eyes of the man who was blind, and he told him, "Go wash in the pool of Siloam." Then the man went and washed. And when he came back, what do you think happened? If you said he could see, you're right. The man's neighbors were amazed. They took the man to the religious leaders and they asked him how he was healed. He told them, "A man put mud on my eyes. I washed and now I can see." Can you imagine if your blind neighbor came home and told you that story? The religious leaders were upset. Not only had Jesus healed the man, but he'd done it on the Sabbath again. They didn't want to believe that Jesus could give sight to blind people. Over and over again, the man who was healed told the religious leaders what had happened. The man believed Jesus must have come from God, but the religious leaders threw the man out of the synagogue. In fact, in the Bible, in John 9, it goes on to tell us more details. It tells us about how they even called in the man's parents and questioned them. I mean, they were asking everybody to tell them the story, and the man's story remained the same. He continued to tell them the truth. Jesus came to the man later and asked, "Do you believe in the Son of Man?" The man answered, "Tell me who he is so I can believe in him." And Jesus replied, "You have already seen him. The Son of Man is talking to you now." The man said, "I believe, Lord," and he worshiped Jesus. Our Christ connection today is pretty simple. In fact, y'all could probably guess it just from this great story. Our sin makes us unable to see the truth about God. Jesus came as a light in a dark world. He came to give us sight, true understanding of God and his kingdom. Those who trust in Jesus see who he is and worship him. This man had more than just a problem that he couldn't see. It was a bigger problem than just being blind. He didn't know the truth. Ultimately, we find our truth in Jesus. But I think this story also teaches us something else, that God is glorified through our struggles. Now, there's two different things. There's consequences when you act bad, when you do something you shouldn't do. Like if I was to get angry and kick, that actually hurt, kick this bookshelf, it did hurt. It caused a pain in my foot. That's a consequence. But sometimes we have things that are struggles. Maybe it's a learning disability, or maybe it's you're not as tall as you want to be, or maybe you're like me and you need to wear glasses, or maybe you don't run as fast as somebody else, or maybe you have asthma and sometimes it's hard for you to breathe and you have to go slower. Sometimes we have struggles, but this story shows us that God can be glorified out of those struggles. God doesn't give us those things because he doesn't like us. He gives us those things so that he can be glorified. That's some of the reason I wanted to share this story for you today. Let's check out some questions that Pastor Brian wants to answer.
Hey there, I'm Pastor Brian, and it's time for Questions from Kids. Damien from San Anselmo, California asks,
what should I do if God seems far away during hard times?
great question, and I think we all experience that at times where we're going through a season of life and God just seems really distant. Usually that is when we're going through something difficult, some adversity, or just a situation where we just find ourselves being sad a lot or troubled, and it feels like God is distant. Now notice the word I just said there, it feels that way. So here's the first thing we have to remember, that God is never distant. He is always there with us. God is omnipresent. That's the big word for present everywhere at once. And so he's always with us. And if we've trusted in Christ, we have the Holy Spirit within us. So he's very present with us in that regard. So even if God feels distant, here's the one thing we can do. We can speak God's truth into our minds and our hearts and remind ourselves that he has not gone anywhere. He is right there with us. And that's good news. The other thing is this, that God feels distant at times, not because he has pulled away from us, but sometimes we've taken our eyes off of him. And so in my life, I know the times that God feels distant, it's because I've not been spending time reading the Bible as much. I've not been praying as much. Maybe I've not been worshiping God as much. And so one of the things I can do, and I need to do when God feels distant, is I need to draw back toward him. I need to read more of Scripture. I need to worship more and pray more. And the amazing thing happens every time when I start doing that, God no longer feels distant. He feels like he's right there where he's always been. And so I want to encourage you to do that. When he feels distant, know he's not distant. And what can you do to draw back to him? And you do those things. So, got a question back for you. How can you encourage someone who feels alone or has lost hope?
Okay, so for our last bit today, we have studied all sorts of things about Amy Carmichael, about Jesus healing the blind man. I have one last activity that I think would be really fun for you. In front of me, I have something, and I wish you were here so that you could feel it. Today, if you're blind, you learn a special language called Braille. And we're going to get a little closer to this book so that you can see it. Because on this book are raised dots, and I can feel them with my finger. And you might be able to tell that they're in a certain pattern. Each page is full of raised dots. Now, if I had learned Braille, I could read you exactly what was written on this book. I haven't learned Braille, but here's what I want you to do. I want you to ask your mom or dad, or if you're older and they let you do searches on the internet, I want you to look up a Braille translator. And I want you to find out how to write your name in Braille. Okay, so it's going to be a series of dots. See, like this book tells us what's inside this book. But it's going to be a series of dots, and those dots are going to form letters that become your name. Now that's not going to be like raised letters. It's not like you're going to feel a raised M for the first letter of Miss Mary. No, it's going to be a combination of dots. Now if you learn the alphabet, it'll be kind of like you have your own secret language that only you and blind people know how to read. But I want you to look up, how do you write your name in Braille? And if you find the same site I found, it'll even show you how you can put it on a piece of paper with, say, glue, so that you can make raised dots like regular white glue, or you could do it with paint like you paint on a t-shirt, or all sorts of ways you could get raised bumps on your paper and write your name in Braille. If you decide to do that, go ahead and send me a picture, because I am going to be so impressed. I'm so glad y'all joined me for Sunday school today. I really do miss y'all, but I'm so glad that we get to meet with each other through technology.